Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, ciao, bonjour, namaste, jumbo, bienvenidos. Hey there, my name is Jedley. Welcome to Reading with Your Kids. We are coming to you from the beautiful, wonderful, historical neighborhood of Reedville, located in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts, in the shadow of the Great Blue Hills. We are so honored and so wicked happy that you're joining us in our mission to help all families all over the world grow closer through reading. How do we do that? Well, we do it by sharing fun, thoughtful, and thought-provoking conversations with really fascinating people who just happen to be writing books for kids of all ages. And we have some really fascinating guests for you today. Please be sure to tell all of your family and friends about the show. Tell your kids' principals, their teachers, their librarians, their youth ministers, their coaches, all about the show. Let them know that they can hear us on the WREB AM/FM 24/7 radio network. And they can also find us on the iHeartRadio app, Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, Audible, Good Pods, Podcast Addict, Player FM, CastBox, Boomplay, Ghana, wherever you find your favorite shows. Like I said, we have some fascinating guests for you today. Bob Shea is returning to the show with his friend Jarvis to celebrate. Oh, are you awake? We will also be sharing with you a really, really fascinating conversation that we recorded in Bologna, Italy at the International Children's Book Festival. Our guest will be Kenyan publisher Melissa Wakhu. We would like to invite you to embark on a transformative journey with The Invisible Backpack, A Life of Courage, written by William Hartwick. Are you burdened by past hurts, grief, or trauma? William's heartfelt narrative, born from his own struggles with depression and Tourette syndrome, offers a pathway to lightening your load. Just like you, he knows the weight of an invisible backpack, growing heavier as life unfolds. But in his touching story, William invites you to courageously unpack it, making space for forgiveness, acceptance, tolerance, and love. Join William on a profound exploration of healing, blessings, and inner strength. Through William's vulnerability, he reveals the power of embracing your true self. Don't miss this inspirational tale of resilience and hope. Order your copy of The Invisible Backpack today and embark on a journey of self-discovery and courage. Get ready for a heartwarming adventure in Mommy's Day Off, the delightful picture book written by Jacqueline Christine. When young Louis's mom has to be away for a day, he's in for a wild ride with his dad. From waffle and ice cream breakfast to Wild West battles, they embark on an unforgettable journey filled with laughter and bonding. But as the day unfolds, Louis realizes there's a special magic that only his mom can bring to their home. Join Louis as he discovers the irreplaceable role his mom plays in his life, making Mommy's Day Off a touching tale of family, love, and the unique bond between a mother and her child. Get your copy today at Amazon or at JacquelineChristine.com. Hey, are you looking for a fun read to share with your kids? Take a magical journey through Italy with Mozzarella and his cheese-loving friends. Introducing the Mozzarella book series written by Jenna James. You and your kids are going to love to follow Mozzarella and his friends as they search for the golden bucket genie. Along the way, you'll learn Italian words, discover new cultures, and learn important lessons about family, honesty, and kindness. Parents will love the bilingual elements that subtly teach a new language. And kids will be entertained and engaged page after page. Discover the heartwarming tales of Mozzarella today. Please visit mozzarellabooks.com to pre-order the series and to find free activities, recipes, and more. The Mozzarella Books by Jenna James, bringing families together with tales of cheese, culture, and fun. I think we are going to have a fun time today. We have two guests on the show that have collaborated to create a great book. And guess what? They've never met each other before today. They met each other for the very first time about 3 minutes ago. Please, first, welcome from Manchester and the United Kingdom. Welcome to the show, Jarvis. Jarvis, how are you?
I'm very, very well. Very, very well. And I'm very excited, especially because of your exciting voice.
Oh, well, I'm happy to be exciting for you. And joining us from the great state of Connecticut, not too far away, we could get together for lunch later on. Please welcome back to the show, Bob Shea. Hey, Bob, what's up?
Hey, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Bob and Jarvis collaborated to create Oh, Are You Awake? And as I said, this is the first time they're meeting each other. And tell me, what was, either one of you can take it. You can start answering at the same time, I guess. But what's Oh, Are You Awake all about?
Well, it's about, I figured since it wasn't a drawing pictures question. since I was like, he's saying that, I'm like, I never really thought that through. It's about two friends, and one of them is very tired and would really, really like to go to sleep. And the other friend maybe isn't so tired and would like to hear some more stories and is a big fan of, squeezing in a couple more stories before they have to go to sleep, which I know there's no reference for that in real life, and parents won't understand that, and that never happens. But so as the one friend, the penguin, is trying to drift off to sleep, the lion, I almost said gorilla. The lion, what's wrong? I'm tired. I'm sorry. The lion does everything he can to keep Penguin awake and encourage him to tell him a story.
Well, that is certainly something I can relate to, both as a parent and as an uncle. I have a niece who is in college, and we get together a lot. And every time we get together, I hear in a 15-minute span of time, "I'm so tired," about 20 times. And I understand she deserves to be tired because she's studying biomedical engineering, and then she has about 12 jobs. Plus she's a college student, and, all her friends decide to come in at 1 o'clock in the morning to say hi. So I can relate to that, but I just enjoy spending time with her so much. It's like, I can't let you go to sleep. I can't let you lie there. So I guess I'm the gorilla lion thing.
You're the lion, yeah.
Yeah, you're the lion. Yeah.
It's funny that you said gorilla, though, because it was a gorilla at the beginning, right at the beginning.
It was. Yeah, it was.
And I actually looked.
Thinking about the origin story of the thing. I'm like, oh, it's a gorilla. I'm like, no, it's not. You read it 50 times last week. It's a lion.
Yeah. But yeah, I just remember, because for this, I was like, I'll do a little bit of research. Even though I already, I should know about this. But I looked up when we started. Do you know when this started, Bob?
Oh my gosh, it had to be very early in the pandemic, or was it before that even?
It was just before the pandemic. Yeah, I actually had an email off you.
Yeah,
and I had put something on Twitter, which has now changed its name. That's how long ago this is.
I was alive.
And owners or whatever. And it was an email because I said on Twitter, I haven't got anything to do. And
That's
you said,
right.
well, if you haven't got anything to do, we could make a book. And I think at that point you didn't have something, but I just found that email. I was like, look at that. It's 2019.
Yeah.
In the middle of it.
I remember that. I thought I emailed you cold, but I think that it was you did. You said, I'm in between things. And I was like, boy, really? Because I was like, this is the time to ask. We didn't know each other at all. And I loved your work so much. And I was like, I said, well, would you be interested in doing something if I had something? And you were like, sure, I'd be open to it. And I talked to you about the way that I approach this with other people when we're trying to collaborate. And you're like, yeah, sounds good. And I sent you a book that was similar in tone and structure that I drew myself and looked awful. Like, thank God. I didn't do that book.
It didn't. This is the thing. It didn't look awful.
It was too slick for especially the direction I'm going now. But yeah, this is so much better.
Yeah, but what it was, because at the time I was a big fan of your books. So actually, I was going to say yeah, even if it was rubbish. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah. No. Of course.
But it isn't. Don't worry. Although we'll never know. But who knows? Yeah. So I was all ready to say yeah, and so I was really happy when it came through. I was like, oh, this is nice because it's got sort of it's Bob being sweet as well.
It has more heart than It does have a lot of heart, and the lion is very charming in his efforts to not go to sleep.
Yeah, and I could tell when I was reading it, I was like, oh, I know that kids will like these, like the page turns. I always like a sort of like what's coming next kind of feel in the middle of books, especially if the kids know what's coming. I think it's funny. So I could feel, oh, this is going to go down well. But like I said, when I tell this, I have to put an American accent on. It's not possible for me to read it in my boring way, really.
Would you be willing to do that now, or am I putting you on the spot? Because I love it when people who don't have an American accent try to do one, because I'm like, we do sound like that.
It won't be, though. It won't be good.
That's okay. I don't want you. Don't worry about it.
I tell you what.
If somebody did that to me, I'd be like, "Don't make me do that live."
Yeah, it's actually made me really stressed out. Just you saying that.
I know. I feel you. I'm not sorry, and I apologize for bringing it up.
Maybe I'll do it. I'll do it spontaneously at some point.
Okay, fair.
But yeah, I don't know. I actually once met an American, right?
Oh, really?
I've met one.
Just
I've met
once?
one.
Really? They don't let
just
us out
one.
a ton.
And I did.
Are you sure it wasn't a Canadian?
It could have been.
Was he polite? If he was
might have
polite,
been
he was a
Irish.
Canadian.
Don't know. But I tried an American accent. I thought I sounded like Larry David, but she just said no. That sounded terrible. That didn't sound American at all.
Right.
So I don't know.
Well, I love that you guys are hosting the Reading with Your Kids podcast this morning for us.
I'm sorry.
No, this is great. This is great. It was a long weekend. I was just sitting back and enjoying it.
Oh, good.
I think we have a lot of aspiring authors out there, and I think I know myself, the first time that I heard it could take 2 or 3 or 4 years from the time that it. Forget about the initial idea, but from the time a publisher buys a manuscript till the time it hits the shelves, it could be 3-4 years. That's mind blowing.
I'm doing one now that I wrote. I remember it was May 2020, and I was like, oh, so I like this idea, and I started working on it, and I sent it to. I'm actually doing it with Lori Keller, is going to illustrate it, but I mean, I just turned in a second draft of the manuscript, and it's many years later. It takes a long time.
So what? Yeah. This sounds. I mentioned that this is the first time you guys met, but you've been working together and being fans of each other for so long. What was it that you couldn't afford the Zoom call to get together on?
Well, you know what the thing is, I tried to get Jarvis to draw with me one time, and he's like, "Nah, I'm not doing that." I don't blame him.
Well. No, I have. Here's my excuses. You want a big list of excuses?
Sure.
So I moved into this house, and it had the worst internet. You had to wind it up. You had to do that. And yeah, it had that noise that people have forgotten about. So I couldn't do anything on the internet, especially in the pandemic times, every author and illustrator to speak to schools would do it over the internet, but I just couldn't do it. I had one of the worst experiences where it kept freezing and a whole school were waiting and it was terrible.
Yep.
So there's one excuse. The other excuse is I'm shy.
Yeah. No,
Does that count?
That's all. Both of those things are completely reasonable. Yeah. It's not for everybody.
I'm busy.
Yeah. Well, there's that too. I haven't done them in a long time because I'm like, I think once I was diagnosed with ADHD and I sorted it out, I was like, you don't have 3 hours during the day to draw with somebody. You got to draw these books.
Now, when you say draw with somebody, what is that for somebody who has no visual art skills at all? You just kind of hang out and draw a circle
So what I would do is during the pandemic, because I was like, man, I'm really sitting in the room by myself like a lot of hours a day. I thought that I would do an Instagram live with other illustrators who were friends of mine or whose work I admired. And then we would, on Friday afternoons, it would just Draw with Bob now. Now it's Shea's Lounge. So it would be split screen. I'm drawing whatever you want. It's just a free drawing session. And we just have a conversation. It's like it's before podcasts really blew up, but it's like a podcast where we're both drawing and just talking about, bad American accents and stuff. That's all.
But we're planning on doing one later on.
Yeah, we're going to do one today. Yeah.
Straight after this.
Yeah.
Excellent.
But I know what you're saying.
Part of his kitchen renovation was better Wi-Fi.
That's it. But I know what you're saying. Like in the middle of making the book, we could have been on the phone to each other, etc.
They don't. But I don't feel that it was ever necessary. Like, if you had a question, like, what were you thinking about here? Blah blah blah. That'd be fine. But when it comes down to doing the books, after I write it, I love seeing what other people do with it. I don't want to see what's in my head. I've been living with that.
Yeah.
So I get the illustrations back from when the publisher shares them with me. Like, look what Jarvis did. It's like a gift. And you're like, wow, that's amazing, because I would never have imagined the style that way, the way the page turns, the layouts, anything. So and the publishers the editor doesn't like us to talk, or really, they don't like the author and illustrator to chat. They need to get the info.
Yeah, that was it, because I'd had some experience of doing other authors' books, and I'd never met them. I'd never had an email from them. It was like they didn't really exist. Yep. I didn't even know what they thought of the book. Sometimes it would just come out, and that was it. And I'd just be there going, where's this person gone? So I was used to kind of ignoring the author. So there you go. That's my other excuse.
Ignoring the author.
Yeah. I just because you live with the story. And I don't know. It's weird. Even though someone else has written it, it kind of becomes yours a little bit.
Yes.
And I ended up just thinking, also, I really loved old Bob's work, and I just couldn't work out, do I want the pressure of Bob on me? Or should I ignore that it exists while I make the book? And I went for that option.
I guess you were embracing that don't meet your heroes thinking.
That was it, yeah. But now it's okay. I mean, I was actually kind of nervous afterward, when I was making it, because I wasn't sure how much Bob was seeing. So I didn't know, if he liked it or not. Right up until, I know it was signed off in the end, and I was still like, I think Bob said something like, I haven't seen it yet. And I was like, it's been signed off.
Yeah.
What?
They had sent me a couple of illustrations, but I hadn't seen the final, yeah.
Yeah. So I was really scared at the end, because I was like, oh God, hope he likes it.
Oh, it's gorgeous. And like I said, I read it quite a few times, because I had some school visits last week, and I read it a few times, and I was looking at all the details, and I'm like, man, Jarvis really thought this through. These are really nice, magical bits in this book. Yeah, it was great. I loved it. I love it.
That's good. That's good.
And
it's
also so funny and organic. It hits a mark that I strive for when I'm drawing my own books that I never get to, where it has a real graphic, strong presence on the page, but it's still really organic and warm. And that's like every time where I'm trying to be, and I can't do it. It's very confident. Like, your line is very confident, where it's like, I scrutinize things too much and be like, what if it looks like a clean logo and it has no life at all? And this whole thing is very full of life. I love it.
Well, I know I love your work anyway. I don't see that in your work, to be honest. I always think of your embracing. I like people who embrace the sort of the thing they're doing. I don't even know if that makes sense. You know, like if you were making it in chalk, then it looks like chalk. Or if you make it on an iPad, right? Let's make it look like it was done on an iPad, if it was done as a logo. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
The sort of halfway house stuff never really. I don't know. I like to see a bit of and I think that's about seeing the hand a little bit.
Yeah.
So I like how your work does embrace the sort of digitalness. And you'll just drop a photograph in there sometimes.
Oh, yeah. That's the graphic designer in me. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's great, your work, which is why I was really scared about doing it, but it's okay. It's over now.
Yeah, it is. Jed, what do you think of our book?
I haven't seen it yet.
What's your favorite part about Jarvis's work?
Well, I love the fact that originally it was going to be a gorilla and it turned out to be a lion. Was that you, Jarvis?
I'm teasing him, put you on the spot. He hasn't seen the book. It's totally fine. Sorry.
That's fine. I'm just curious. Did you get the manuscript, Jarvis, and you go, gorilla? That's stupid. I'm just going to make it a lion.
Oh yeah, mine wasn't that. Yeah.
No, because it was, I think originally, did you do some kind of jellyfish or something?
It was a baby seal with just a little round character on that I was calling Mochi. It was just a little Mochi. It was like a little round dot on a baby seal that I kept trying to work this buddy comedy of they'd solve crimes. And it was the seal's last week on the force. And he got matched up with this partner, Mochi. And, he didn't need this till the end of his career. I made that up.
You need another book.
Baby seal.
You need another book to explain their backstory.
Right, exactly. It's so much more involved than you'd imagine. And this is just one moment. Yeah, so that's what I did. And it was a very Adobe Illustrator clean.
Oh.
I was concerned because people would be like, looks very, very Japanese pop, and he's not that. So I was like, this isn't right. You're just playing.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But what was funny was because you'd kind of, like I said, you'd done it. Basically, you'd done it.
Yeah, it was done.
And it was done. And then, but the thing what's hilarious is you had this little Mochi character, and it was sat on the seal's head, right?
Yep.
So that basically stayed completely all the way through, and it sort of makes sense with the seal and the little blob.
Right.
But in every instance that I did it, it made no sense. But no one ever questioned it.
Nope.
Ever.
Right.
But it has to be that because for the story to work, it makes it better that the penguin is asleep on the lion's head.
So then even when he's on the trampoline waking him up, that makes sense because he's flinging him in the air. Yeah. And the scale of those two characters, it's great. I look at it and I don't question it at all.
No, and no one ever did until there wasn't a review that just said, why is the penguin on the, it's like, someone actually noticed.
Yeah, somebody was like, they never addressed why the penguin is sitting on the lion's head. I'm like, well, we never addressed how do penguins and lions talk either.
Yeah.
So it's the hierarchy of logic.
This is why I loved doing this book, because at the same time as doing this book, I was doing very kind of serious, almost like realistic pictures. If I was doing a kitchen, I'd have to do the whole kitchen with an oven, and everything had to be really specific, and a bit of perspective in there as well. Whereas this book, you could just draw a drum kit and then get rid of the drum kit, and there was no backgrounds. You could just kind of make it up. So it was very free and very kind of fun to do.
That's good because it really comes across in the illustrations because they're like super playful and loose. So I love it. I run into that too. Like I find that I'm the problem. Like, I'll start drawing something and I'll be like, well, what does this really look like? And I'll be like, well, if this is this big, this has to be this big. And I'm like, what's wrong with you? That's the least fun thing in the world. Make it,
I know.
play with the scale, and it doesn't matter. And the planes, who cares? Just draw it. Just draw, like, without thought. Anyway.
Now, when and this is for both of you, Bob and Jarvis, when you're creating art or you're writing a story for little kids, do you try to get back into like little kid headspace to entertain them, or are you just naturally in that maturity range?
Do you want to go first, Jarvis? You can go.
I would say I don't really think about it. I think I'm kind of naturally in that range of I'm doing stuff that makes me kind of happy or makes me laugh or makes me think, oh, that's a good twist or that's a good story. And then a few years later, you read it to a kid and find out if it's any good. But no, I'm not necessarily thinking about the kids that much, apart from because I do write some of my own stuff as well. And I will kind of trawl back through my memories, of things or feelings I had when I was a kid, or, little things that might have happened to you. I might kind of trawl back and try and think about what I was like. But no, I'm trying to just please myself, really.
Yeah.
And Bob.
Same, exactly the same. I just try to pay attention in the world, and I'm like, oh, that's a funny thing, or I'll be joking around with my wife and I'll say something silly, and I'm like, that connection of those two things, that's kind of silly. Maybe there's something there. And I write the story, and then I do Jarvis, I do exactly the same thing of you. I'm like, when I was little, what would I think of this? Like, could I relate to this, or would I be like, what is that guy talking about? So I don't think about the kids. I try to entertain myself, and it's just, and I'm not like walking around all childlike all day. Like, I just wear regular, boring grown up clothes and do things. And it's my life is not particularly whimsical. And I love illustration, and I make these stories, and fortunately kids think they're funny too. And grown-ups, and what I found is grown-ups like to read them, because I write them for the grown-ups as well, because they're the ones who have to spend time with them night after night. So I'm like, I hear you. I'm with you.
Yeah. I'm curious because I think I might have mentioned it to you, Bob, the last time you were here. I do educational magic shows, and, I'm up on stage, and I have like a core idea of where I want to start and where I want to end up, but a lot of stuff in the middle is improv. And there's a lot of things I say on stage I don't even remember by the, get the laugh, and then and kids would come up, I love when you said that. I go, what did I say? Oh, okay. But then it's gone. It's in the moment. It comes out and it's there. It's hard for me to imagine sitting down and creating something and not getting a reaction forget about 5 minutes, not getting a reaction for years. What's that like? Does it take kind of a discipline to kind of like, okay, I created that, now let me sit back and I'll enjoy the reaction later on?
Jarvis, I don't know how you do this. I have a core group of other people who I share the books with before they're done, and they, I only share them with people who I think will be honest with me. Like, when I send them to people and they're like, this is great, you're a genius and everything's good, I'm like, well, you're not going to see my work before it's done again because you are a liar. And I have a lot of friends who, and I do this for them as well, they know what they can tell, because they know me, they can tell what I'm trying to do. And they can say, I see what you're trying to do. You're not there. It didn't land. I like the direction, but the execution's not so good, or whatever. Or even like, oh, you got a lot of good jokes, but the overall thing, it's confusing. And what's the matter with you? And that's how I get the reactions. And honestly, I'll be honest with you, I trust my own instincts a lot. I'm not always enamored with my work so much that I'm like, this is genius. I read it and like, there's always a voice in the back of your head. They're like, this isn't working, right? You're like, nope, it's working. And then you send it to your friends and they say the back of your head voice to you.
Yeah, I only have my wife because I don't trust anybody else. And even people who are really harsh, I'll just be like, I don't know. It's funny. I just trust her. So I'll just look at her face and see if she either likes a picture or I'll read it. And her first reaction is usually to kind of be polite. And then you're just waiting for the second thing when she goes, like, just can you just show me it again? And then that's when she's kind of goes, I don't think that's not good.
Or it's just like, well, do you like it? And then you're like,
something.
oh, it's
do you
terrible.
know what? That's something I've learned off editors. You know, if you're having a meeting with an editor, I've now noticed one of the first things people say to me is like, what do you think? And then I'm like, oh no, it's the trap. And so I just go, I think it's great. So yeah. No, yeah, I show it to my wife, and the thing about not getting any initial feedback, do you know what? I don't even care about that, because actually sometimes just coming up with an idea or a picture, you kind of know this is good. Or even if people don't like this, I like this. It kind of gives you a good feeling. That's
and it works. You can tell that it works. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the sort of exciting bit, actually. To be honest, the exciting bit is when no one's seen it or heard it. For me.
Yes. Yeah. That's it's a much more real, authentic experience, authentic excitement. You're like, oh yeah, like that snap. You're like, oh yeah, I figured that out. It's like solving a puzzle.
Yeah.
Can I ask you though, Jarvis, like, do you get, my wife is an art director. She's a very talented art director. And I'm reluctant to show her things now because I'm a big baby and I know she's right. So I usually get mad for 3 days, but then end up doing it. Are you like cool with feedback from her? It's like, it's because it's such a different relationship because you're married.
No, it's probably very similar. I mean, I kind of, I'll try and do a bit, if I know it's not very good, I'll try and do a bit of a sell before I show it, or kind of stopping it. I'll kind of go like, right, not this, but it's kind of not quite done, but yeah. And so I twist whatever she says into, you know, the right answer for a bit. But yeah, she is always right, but she's not an art director. She is kind of artsy. She's a school teacher and she's a design and technology teacher. So she's across a few things.
Yeah.
But she's not an art director. But she just kind of, I think because she's not in the industry, I think it's kind of good. Because, yeah, there are people I could send my work to and they just go, yeah, I have done, and they'll go, this looks great. And you kind of get nothing from that. You're just a bit, you're like, and then you question why you even show it anyway. You're kind of like, well, that was more of just an ego boost for me, just to show you what I'm working on. Or, so yeah, there is only her, and also the editors. Who, if I'm working with an editor, I've worked with, this book is out with Candlewick, right? Oh, Are You Awake? And they have a kind of UK arm called Walker Books, and pretty much all my books are with them. So I'm really close to some of the editors there, and I just send them ideas, and it's kind of a close relationship. So they can be quite honest, and I'll take what they say on board.
Yeah, and that's a different relationship too, because they're looking at it from a different perspective than your wife is, but both of them are valuable to you. It's true when people just like, oh, I love it. Then you're like I said, I don't send it to them again. The other thing that sometimes happens is people just want to show you how smart they are. And I'm like, yeah, okay. Yeah, you're very smart. Thank you for that feedback. But yeah, no, but I understand what you're saying about sending it to people or whatever, but it's like I've weeded them out over the years that I have like 3 or 4 people who are just straight up with me.
Well, I think that's really important to have people in your life that can tell you the truth and give you the feedback and you be open to it. One of the comments. I did a show at a little Catholic school in Northeast Pennsylvania. And my host said, "Oh, my husband's a magician. Can he come in and watch you?" And I said, "Sure." And at the end of the show, when all the kids,
David Blaine.
No, it wasn't. But this gentleman came up to me, and a lot of people were within earshot, and he came up and he shook my hand. And he goes, "You just proved that you don't have to be the most skilled magician in the world to do a good show." And the people around me were horrified. And I'm like,
gosh, thank you so much.
No, dude, I completely understand what you're saying. And thank you. I take that as a compliment, because I'm not a great skilled magician at all. I have 4 or 5 things I can do, and I do them really well. And that's it.
If somebody said, "You've just proved you don't have to be good at drawing to be an illustrator," I'm not sure I'd take it in the same.
I'd be fine with that. I'd be like, "Thank you. I get it."
I'm fooling everybody. This is great.
No, to be honest, I am similar. I'm not very good at drawing either, which we'll find out later on.
Well, I think we could hang out all afternoon long, but unfortunately I have more interviews to do today. So.
Oh, really? You do more than one in a day?
It is. It's amazing.
Exhausting.
I know.
How are you? Are you just going to talk about our book?
That's right. We're just going to come back on and go, "Hey, what do you think?" Forget your book. What do you think about "Oh, Are You Awake" by Bob and Jarvis?
Yeah, exactly.
But we should tell everybody where we can go to find out more about the book and more about both of you. If we want to find out more about the book, don't go to their websites, because there's nothing on their websites about "Oh, Are You Awake?"
It's too new, and I'm too slow at doing something like that.
But maybe by the time you hear this interview, they will have something on it. So first, Jarvis, where can we go to find out more about you and your work?
Well, I do have a website for people who go on websites. I've never met one before, but it's byjarvis.com, or I'm on Instagram as Jarvis Picture Books.
Excellent. And Bob, where can we go to find out more about you? Either Instagram or websites or back alleys?
The website is bobshea.com, and Shea is SHEA, which in Massachusetts, because the place is silly with Sheas, but a lot of people don't.
Yep.
And Instagram is Bob Shea Books.
Awesome. We've had a really fun time and a very different podcast here, but spending time with our guests.
Chatting.
Bob Shea and Jarvis, the author and illustrator of "Oh, Are You Awake?" Hey, my friends, thanks so much for being with us.
Hey, that was fun. Thank you.
Thank you very much. See you later. Bye.
Bye.
Before we invite our guest into the studio, I would love to invite you to visit a very special website. It's clownswithoutborders.org. Clownswithoutborders.org. This is a group that I absolutely adore. I am part of Clowns Without Borders, and I had the honor of being part of the 2023 tour of El Salvador. I had so much fun joining with artists from all over the world to bring a smile to people who really needed it and really appreciated it too. And we would love for you to join us as a monthly Joy Maker. The Joy Makers, they're a family of people just like you who love to laugh and make other people feel good. So please take a moment and visit clownswithoutborders.org and consider joining me as a Joy Maker. Hey, are you ready to ignite a passion for reading in your students? Introducing bookandauthor.com, your gateway to literacy connections. With bookandauthor.com, connecting your school with talented authors of captivating kids' books has never been easier. Simply visit our user-friendly website and explore our extensive database of authors. Filter your search based on budget, genre, and availability. Discover the perfect match for your school and your students. But that's not all. With bookandauthor.com, you have the power to request a proposal. Let vetted authors come to you with their tailored ideas, ensuring an unforgettable literacy experience for your students. Don't wait any longer to inspire young minds through the magic of books. Visit bookandauthor.com today and open the door to a world of literacy connections. Bookandauthor.com, where literacy comes to life. I'm back at the Spotlight Africa booth at the International Children's Book Festival in Bologna, and I'm speaking with Melissa Wakhu.
Yes.
And you are from?
Nairobi, Kenya.
Nairobi, Kenya.
Yes.
Tell me the name of your publishing house, please.
My publishing house is called Soul Kids Africa.
Soul Kids Africa.
Yes.
That's so cool.
Thank you.
You and I had a brief conversation before we got on the bus to come here this morning.
Yes.
And I was really happy to know that we share a lot of the same views in terms of how important it is to read with your kids.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about it from your perspective?
You know, what I loved about our conversation is we saw the benefit of reading out loud. It helps us bond with the kids. And for me growing up, it's not a typical African thing to read out loud together. If we read, everyone sits in their own corner and you read quietly. But ironically, our African tradition is oral, you know, gathering around fire by the evening or under a tree during the day, and an adult tells a story dramatically, which is similar to podcasting now.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
Or digital storytelling. Mm-hmm. So it's like we've come back full circle. But because we have a lot of books now, trying to get African parents to see the value of reading out loud, because it's not something we do, but it's something that's needed because it helps with raising readers, creating imagination, vocabulary and word formation. So the first time I encountered it was as an adult with my own children, and it felt weird. You know, how do I read? What if I'm boring? What if there's a monotone? But the more I did it, then I learned there's no perfect or right way to do it. It's just there's something comforting about being read to. That is such a beautiful skill, beautiful connecting and bonding activity. Yeah.
One of the things that I loved about reading with my kids was the conversations that started about the story. And the story was just a way to bring us together and start those conversations.
Absolutely. And you know, how I grew up, and which is representative of most of Africa, is when it's time to learn, you must sit still. And so when I started reading out loud, I used to tell my third born can't sit still at all. And I used to tell her, sit still, sit still. But then I learned she's a busy listener. Like her ears don't need to be still. So many times she'll be upside down doing a cartwheel, or she's brought her toys, but she's still listening. And allowing children to be themselves, whether you have the one who likes to cuddle and stay still, or the one who wants to build forts, or the one who interrupts and asks lots of questions. You're right, it's the conversations that come out of the stories that you read together that's so beautiful.
Yeah. One of the things that we've talked about on the podcast a lot is how empowering it is when you ask your kid, what do you think? The most important person in that kid's life, their parent, is saying, I care about what you think.
Absolutely. And that's beautiful because we're, again, just drawing parallels. In our context, children don't talk to adults. You know, when the adults are talking, go out and play or retreat somewhere. So drawing them in and saying your thoughts matter and training them to think. I'm not looking for a right answer. I just want your thoughts on this topic. Or if you were to rewrite this story, how would it end differently? Or what do you think the author was trying to say? Or what do you think about this character? Or what do you think is going to happen next? You know, and then they learn that, oh, I have a voice, and it matters.
Yeah. Tell us about some of the books that you've been publishing.
Okay. Funny thing is, I started writing as I'm a homeschool parent of 4 children, and when my son was 4, a lot of the books we're reading were not African, but they're good books, and I love them. Our favorite was a book about Abraham Lincoln. It was a story written from the perspective of his hat, the hat on his head, and the hat had this important job of keeping the speeches. And sometimes the wind would blow the speech, and it was so whimsical and so cute. And at the end of it, my son knew all the significant speeches and where they were made. And I thought that's so brilliant, but he's not American.
Right.
And it's necessary for him to learn that because that's a significant part of history. But then I saw the gap. And the good books we were reading didn't have people that looked like him. And when I compared with a lot of our books are educational, so the focus is you're learning vowel formation or you're learning sounds and letters, but there's not just joy of reading. And so I wrote my first book was about a hibiscus flower because we have a lot of hibiscus. We'd read a book about the maple leaf, and my kids asked me again, "What do you think?" And they asked me, "What's a maple leaf?" I've never been to Canada. We don't have maple trees. We have maple syrup in the store, but that's not helpful.
No, not at all.
And so I looked outside and I'm like, wait a minute, we have so much hibiscus. It just grows freely. So let me write a book about hibiscus. And after that, we can grow hibiscus flowers. We can make hibiscus tea, hibiscus jam, paint hibiscus, wear hibiscus in our hair, and breathe life into it. And that's what got me in this journey of writing. So I have written 16 books.
Wow.
And a lot of them have been bestsellers because they're relevant and contextual. But then in that journey, then I formed Soul Kids Africa, and we have a total of 18 books in our collection over the span of 3 years.
Wow. Congratulations.
Thank you, which is big. And now we're signing on different authors. And so we're now a publishing house and an agency, and we're now in animation and music, and just using mixed media to tell our stories from Africans by Africans to the world.
Wow.
Yes.
We talk a lot about the power of books to be a mirror, window, and a sliding glass door. And
yes.
You mentioned a little bit about how important it was for your kids to be able to see themselves.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit more about that, please?
Going back to my journey as a parent, when my son was 5, he wanted to grow his hair out because he loves to play soccer, and he thought if he runs, his hair will blow in the wind. So you can imagine his frustration because African hair doesn't blow in the wind. And that's just because a lot of the good books we were reading don't have people who look like him or have experiences like him. One book we read recently is Johnny Tremaine, which is a beautiful book based on American historical events, but with a fictional character. And for me, I'm raising a world citizens, so I love that we read all sorts of books, but I'm constantly seeing the gap. That it's great they know about the medieval period or the Pilgrim's Progress and, the westward expansion of civilization, or they'll know about the China Empire, but we don't have books of the same quality that immerse you into African empires that existed thousands of years ago, and warriors, and just to see that when this significant event was happening, say the plague was happening, what else was happening in Africa? Or when China's Ming Dynasty was existing, what else was happening in Africa? And bring it into the conversation and have holistic representation. So we're not saying we're just Pan-African for the sake of it, but we're trying to raise these children to know that they matter, their voice matters, it's intentional, that God created them for a reason and a purpose to exist in Africa, and they can play a significant role in the world. So getting them when they're young, and getting them excited to see people who look and sound like them is so key to that.
Yeah. I can relate to your son because I would love for my hair to be blowing in the wind, but I don't have any. So
we have a funny comic called The Bald Man. I think you'd
like me.
Yes, you'll relate with it because the villain is Afroman, and Afroman puts toupees and wigs on everybody because he thinks everyone should have hair. But Baldman has the sun shining on his bald head, and that's his superpower. So
that's his superpower?
Yeah, and so he conquers the world and sets everybody free to just wear their hair however.
I like that. I get that. one of the things that I love, because, you know, you're mentioning you had all these books from America available for you. Yeah. And, of course, my kids growing up, being an old white guy, that's read lots of books about white people and whatnot. I love the fact that a book can give kids a look into somebody else's life, be that window so they can see other cultures.
Absolutely.
And see that we are all part of one beautiful human family.
Absolutely. I say books is the cheapest way to travel.
Yes.
And it's the best way to make friends. I grew up loving the library because it was a quiet place where I can travel. In my mind, I'll be in Alaska, and I'll be in Bali, and I'll be in Mauritius, and I'll be in South Africa, and then I can come back. Because the beauty of books versus movies and animations is however you imagine it is what it becomes. And so the best way for kids to make new friends and travel the world is through books, by tapping into their imagination.
Yeah, so very important. And it's a lot easier traveling from Alaska to Bali in a book, because you don't have to do a layover anywhere and worry about connecting flights.
Or losing your luggage.
Absolutely. Where can people go to find out more about you and your company?
Okay, they can check us out on Soul Kids Africa, www.soulkidsafrica.com. We're also on YouTube, and we're also on Instagram. And the cool thing about Soul Kids is it was founded by myself and Africa's largest music group called Sauti Soul. And we do mixed media. So we have music for kids, we have animation, but then the celebrity effect is mind-boggling because a lot of the adults are fans of the musicians, and then I deliver the content. So they'll check out the music, and then they'll see, oh, there's great content for children, and I'm ensuring it's good content that's value-based.
What a great idea, connecting with a musical group.
Yes, they're the celebrities.
Yeah.
So fun fact is I am a shy person, but since I connected with them, they forced me to have to put myself out there and dress the part and, be a brand that proudly shouts that, we're here and we matter. But yes, they are amazing in pushing the narrative of literacy and leadership and empowerment.
Yeah. Yes. One last question. What do you want, beyond the fact that Africa is a continent, not a country? Because everybody says, Africa, I'm going to go to Africa.
And then they say, I know John from Ghana. And I'm like, do you know how far Ghana is from Kenya? And we have like 1 million Johns in Kenya. But yes.
What do you want people to know about Kenya?
Wow. What I want people to know about Kenya is we're not all runners, even if Kipchoge broke the marathon.
The Boston Marathon is happening next week.
Yes. Is that we are actually very, I'd say very intelligent people who are hard workers, and we are like a quiet strength. We may not be as loud or colorful or vibrant as our Nigerians, but we have substance, and I think that's what's helped Kenya be stable over these years, and we are, can I say, the next frontier. So everyone who's listening, just check out Kenya, because in a few years, we're going to put our mark on the world.
Excellent. Well, It looks like you're putting a mark on the world for lots of kids.
Thank
so that's
you.
Wonderful. Thank you for being on Reading with Your Kids.
And thank you for having me. And you're doing an amazing show.
Thank you. Checks in the mail. We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Reading with Your Kids and will join us for the next exciting episode of the show. Hey, to make sure that you don't miss a minute of Reading with Your Kids, please subscribe to the show on the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, wherever you find your favorite shows. And if you are listening to us on the WREB AM/FM 24/7 radio network and miss an episode or want to listen to this episode or any other episode again, and of course you can find all of our episodes on our website, readingwithyourkids.com, and of course on all those other streaming platforms, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Audible, Apple. wherever you find your favorite shows. We would love to connect with you on social media, facebook.com/readingwithyourkids, at readingwithyourkids on Instagram and TikTok, and at Magic on Twitter. In addition to finding all of our past episodes, you can find a whole lot on our website, readingwithyourkids.com. You can check out our blog, download our free online magazine, visit our Reading With Your Kids Certified Great Read Wall of Fame, and use the contact button at the top of the page to send us a message. Let us know what you love about the show. Let us know what we could be doing better. And especially, we would love to know who you would like to hear on a future episode of the show. And if you are an author, please be sure to click the Authors Click Here button at the top of the page to find out how you can be a guest. Being a guest, it's fun, it's easy, and it gives you the chance to tell thousands of children's book fans all across the world about your great kids' book. You can also learn about our effective and affordable promotional services. I want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful. Of course, we want to start by thanking our guests, Bob Shea and Jarvis, along with Melissa Wakhu. I want to thank my team, Fatima Khan, Rory Grady, Chris Doherty, Nick Warner, Kyoko Ito, Kayla Newland, Kristen Barrett, Sydney Swan, Anna Rose. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. I want to thank our great sponsors, but most of all, I want to thank you. I want to thank you for taking the time to listen to the show, but more than that, I want to thank you for taking the time to make the world a better place. And you do that every time you read with your kids. I'll be looking for you on the next episode of Reading with Your Kids.